Monday was the kind of day that wraps itself around your neck without warning. The kind that feels ordinary until something microscopic shifts and you realize you've stepped into the first page of a story you never wanted to be part of. I was in the kitchen, half distracted, running the garbage disposal and scrolling through the weather app. I wasn't even supposed to be home. I called in sick that morning, not because I was sick, but because something in my gut had been buzzing for days. Not nerves. Instinct. Something quiet and sharp. It was around 11:40 a.m. when I noticed it. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She was upstairs in the shower. I could hear the water going. I wasn't trying to snoop. But it lit up once, then again. A name appeared that didn't belong to anyone we knew. Mike, work gym, a lazy cover name, one of those that pretends to explain itself. She doesn't go to the gym at work. Hasn't for months. I told myself not to touch it. I stood there for a good 30 seconds just staring at that screen like it was ticking. Then it lit up again. This time, no name. Just a preview. Can't stop thinking about you. Yesterday was... It cut off. My body didn't react the way I thought it would. No rage. No stomach drop. Just this strange stillness. Like the house exhaled and I finally heard what it had been trying to say. I picked up the phone. It wasn't locked. The conversation was still open. Dozens of texts. Pictures. Inside jokes I didn't understand. Dates. Times. Plans for this weekend. The kind of language people use when they've been playing a long game and stopped caring about being caught. I trusted her. Then I saw the texts, his name, her emojis, their secrets. My world didn't break. It collapsed. She kissed me goodnight, then whispered lies to him. My hands shook. But not from grief, from the weight of truth. She came downstairs while I was still holding the phone. Hair wet, wrapped in a towel, smiling like nothing in the world could touch her. I didn't say a word. I just turned the screen toward her, let her read what I'd seen. The smile didn't drop immediately. That was the worst part. She squinted, leaned in, and for a second looked annoyed. Like I'd interrupted her day with something inconvenient. Then her expression shifted, but not to guilt. No. It was calculation. Quiet, cold, and fast. Like she was solving a math problem. You went through my phone? Her voice wasn't shaking. It wasn't afraid. It was disappointed. In me. You shouldn't have done that. That was the first thing she said. Not I'm sorry, not I can explain, but a challenge. She turned it on me so smoothly it felt rehearsed. I didn't answer. Just stared at her. Waiting. She walked past me like I was a coat rack and grabbed a mug from the cabinet. Poured herself coffee. The audacity of it made me feel like I wasn't even real. When she finally looked at me again, she said, "It's not what you think." I laughed, but it wasn't a laugh. More like a cough made of disbelief. Then what is it? She hesitated. That was when I saw the first crack. But she patched it quickly. He's just someone I talk to. It's harmless. I showed her a picture he sent. One of her in our bed. Her hand on his chest. No shirt. No shame. This is harmless? She didn't flinch. You've been distant for months. What did you expect? That hit harder than I wanted it to. Because it wasn't even new. That's how she fights, digs up the dry dirt of old arguments and throws it like it's fresh. But this wasn't about me being distant. This was about her doing things in our home, on our sheets, while I paid the mortgage and cooked dinner. I walked out. Not to leave, not yet. I just needed air. I stood on the porch, heart beating like a war drum, phone still in my hand, her voice behind me now muffled by the door. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't want to fix anything. I wanted to watch it all burn quietly, methodically. Now, with revenge burning quietly. I asked myself, will I leave or make her watch me rise? That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. I sat in the garage with the lights off, door cracked open just enough to let in the flicker of the street lamp. The cold concrete under my feet kept me grounded. I replayed the conversation over and over, dissecting every pause, every shift in her tone. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the way she delivered it. Smooth. Mechanical. Like I was some inconvenience she had to handle before lunch. At 3:17 a.m. I started digging. Not just texts. I went through old bank statements, Uber receipts, calendar alerts on the shared iPad. I found a receipt for a dinner she told me was a girls' night. Except it was only for two. A bottle of wine, one steak, one seafood entree. No one orders two different kinds of protein for themselves. And the time? 8:49 p.m. I remembered that night. I was home with the flu. She brought me ginger ale and told me she'd be late because Emily was going through a breakup. I even texted her that night, told her to be safe. She didn't reply until midnight. Said they went dancing after. She wasn't dancing. She was feeding someone oysters in a dim-lit restaurant while I was sweating through the sheets alone. By dawn, I had a timeline. A rough one, but clear enough. This had been going on for 4 months. It wasn't just a fling. She booked hotel rooms under her maiden name. She used cash to buy things I never saw, lingerie she claimed she bought for me but never wore. She even changed her perfume. Subtle things. Things that only looked obvious in hindsight. At 6:12 a.m. she came into the garage. She stood there barefoot, a blanket draped over her shoulders like she was playing the role of someone grieving. "Are you going to talk to me?" she asked. Voice soft, like she was the victim now. I didn't answer. She stepped closer. "You can't just shut down and play detective, okay? Relationships go through things." I turned to her. "This wasn't something we went through. This is something you built." She didn't deny it. She sat down on the step. "You don't understand." He listened to me. He made me feel seen. I stared at her for a long time. "I saw you. Every day. I made you dinner, remembered your appointments, scratched your back when you couldn't sleep. I saw everything. You just stopped seeing me." She didn't cry. That's what stuck with me. She sat there trying to look shattered, but her eyes stayed dry. "He said I was glowing," she whispered. "Glowing?" I repeated. "After lying to my face? Using our bed? Glowing from what? Deceit?" Still, no apology. Just more lines about how she felt neglected, how I buried myself in work, how she tried to tell me, but I never listened. But here's the thing, she never told me. Because if she had, I would have fought for us. I would have changed things. What she did wasn't a cry for help, it was a choice. Repeated. Protected. Hidden. And then, as if the universe itself wanted to twist the knife, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from an unknown number. "Hey, this is Mike. I think we should talk. Man to man." She saw the screen. Her face lost that artificial calm for the first time. "You gave him my number?" "I didn't," she said too quickly. I swear he must have found it. Now she was nervous. "Good." I stood up and walked past her. "Tell him if he wants to talk, he can come here. I'll be waiting." She grabbed my wrist. "Please don't make this worse." I looked at her hand like it was a bug crawling on me. "You already did." And then I said something I didn't plan. Something that came from somewhere I didn't know existed. "This isn't just about betrayal. It's about respect. You lost mine. And soon you'll know what that feels like." I left her there in the garage, wrapped in a blanket of lies, and started planning something better than revenge. A mirror. One she'd have to look into, piece by brutal piece. He came on a Wednesday. 2 days after the text. No warning. No call. Just a knock on the front door at 2:11 p.m. while I was home, working remotely with my laptop open but untouched since breakfast. I watched his shape through the frosted glass, tall, confident, like the kind of guy who's never had to apologize for anything in his life. When I opened the door, he smiled. Like we were friends. "Hey, man. Mike." He extended his hand like he was greeting me at a barbecue. Not a flicker of shame in his face. No guilt, no tension. Just a guy standing in the ruins of my house like he was a guest at a party I didn't throw. I didn't shake his hand. He laughed, dropped it. "Right? Yeah. Fair." I stepped aside. "Come in." He looked surprised but took the invitation. Walked in slowly, scanning the place with the smug ease of someone who'd already been there. And he had. I could feel it in the air, like the walls themselves remembered him. I didn't offer him a seat. He sat anyway. Living room. On my chair. "You wanted to talk," I said. "Yeah. Look, this isn't easy, I know. I'm not trying to disrespect you. I just wanted to clear the air." "Clear the air?" I almost laughed in his face. But I stayed still. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, like he was about to confess something brave. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. We didn't plan anything. It just developed. Over months," I said flatly. He nodded. "Yeah. She's married." He nodded again, slower this time. "I know. That's the part that's been eating at me. Eating at you so badly you kept doing it." There it was, his first hesitation. He looked down, like maybe he realized this wasn't going to be some peace talk where I forgave him and we clapped each other on the back. Maybe he expected tears. Begging. A lecture about morals. But I wasn't there to give him any of that. I was there to understand how a stranger felt bold enough to walk into another man's life and make himself comfortable. He cleared his throat. "She said it was over between you two. Emotionally. That she was just staying for convenience. Said you were like roommates." My jaw tightened. "And that made it okay?" He didn't answer. Just gave a weak shrug. "She ever tell you about our anniversary last month?" I asked. "The dinner. The gift I gave her. The letter I wrote. That got him." "No," he said, quieter. "She read that letter. Smiled at me. Slept next to me. Then sent you photos from the same night." Now he was pale. "Good. Let it settle." "I didn't know," he said. "You didn't ask." There was silence then. Heavy, honest silence. The kind that presses on your chest. And then the front door opened. She walked in carrying groceries. Saw him first. Stopped dead. "Mike." I turned to her. "You gave him our address?" "No," she said, too fast, too loud. "I don't know how why is he here?" Mike stood, suddenly unsure of himself. "You told me he'd already moved out." She froze. And there it was, the fracture. The lie between them. The one she hadn't prepped for. I didn't say that, she muttered. Yes, you did, he said, now more confused than guilty. You said he was staying with a friend, that he couldn't handle the separation. She didn't speak. I didn't help her. Wait, he said slowly, turning to me. You two are still living together? I nodded. We were never separated. She never told me anything. Until 2 days ago. He looked at her like she'd punched him. You said you were filing already. Her mouth opened but nothing came out. So I answered for her. She lies easily. It's her talent. She dropped the grocery bag. Eggs cracked on the tile. Milk rolled across the floor. She didn't move to clean it. Mike turned back to me. I didn't mean to disrespect you. You did. Repeatedly. He didn't argue. Then I looked at her. And I said the first thing that truly rattled her, stay. Both of you. Sit down. We're going to finish this. She blinked, almost laughed. What? I said sit. The silence was surgical. And then somehow they obeyed. I had a plan. Not just for this moment. For the next 10. And I hadn't even started yet. She sat stiffly on the edge of the couch, arms crossed like a teenager in the principal's office. He dropped into the armchair again, but this time without confidence, more like someone waiting for a sentence to be read. The air felt electric, heavy with unspoken words, guilt, and the last fumes of control she thought she still had. I stood. Not pacing. Not shaking. Just standing. Watching them. I'm not going to shout, I said. Not going to throw anything or ask why. I know why. That part's clear. She scoffed, quiet but sharp. So what is this, some twisted therapy session? I looked at her and for the first time in years I didn't feel anything. Not hate. Not love. Just a kind of hollow clarity. No. This is a reckoning. Mike rubbed his face. Look, man, I shouldn't have come. This was a mistake. You should have thought of that when you were letting her lie to you in my house. That shut him up. I walked to the cabinet in the hallway and pulled out a small stack of envelopes. Neatly labeled. Dated. I tossed the first one onto the table in front of them. Photos, I said. You two at that boutique hotel near the freeway. You wearing my shirt, by the way. She said it was old. Donated it. Her eyes widened slightly. I caught it. She didn't know I had these. The next envelope hit the table. Audio? She left her phone on during one of your visits. Voice memos automatically back up. Didn't even need to touch her phone again. She shifted uncomfortably. Mike looked at her, the first real anger flickering in his face. She said you were separated, he repeated, more to himself than to me now. She told you what you needed to hear, I said. Because that's what she does. She wraps her lies in soft tones and broken promises, and somehow you end up thanking her for the damage. She stood up now, red in the face. You've been spying on me? No, I said calmly. I've been watching the wreckage of my life unfold. And now I'm showing you the wreckage. That's different. Mike stood too, suddenly furious. You used me. She turned on him. Used you? You pursued me. Don't act innocent. That was a crack. A visible one. His face hardened. You said I was different. She scoffed. Different from who? A man who actually pays the bills? Who stuck around through your messes? Now he scoffed. Wow. So I'm just your backup fantasy? Something to fill time when you're bored. She looked between us, caught, spinning, trying to regain control. Don't twist this. Both of you wanted something from me. I stepped in then. Close. Calm. Clear. No. You wanted something. Freedom without consequence. Love without loyalty. Secrets without sacrifice. And then I said it. I'm not divorcing you. That made them both freeze. What? She said. Mike blinked. Why not? I smiled slow. Not kind. Because that's too easy. You'd spin it. Cry to your friends. Tell them I was controlling, distant, cruel. You'd become the tragic phoenix rising from the ashes of a loveless marriage. No. You're going to stay right here while I dismantle the fantasy you built brick by brick. Her voice cracked. You can't keep me here. You're free to leave, I said. But the story follows you. All the texts. All the photos. Every lie. It's going to follow both of you. Mike turned white. She tried to speak but choked on silence. This isn't revenge, I added. It's a mirror. You don't like what you see? Then maybe you shouldn't have made the mess. I turned, walked to the door, and opened it. Now go. She stared at me, stunned. Where am I supposed to go? I shrugged. Your problem now. She left. Mike didn't say a word. Just followed her out like a man leaving a funeral. I didn't close the door until their car disappeared. Then I turned back to the house. Empty. But not broken. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't the one lying. I was the one rising. The silence after they left wasn't peaceful. It was surgical. Clean, cold, and precise. Like something had been cut out of the house and I was still waiting to feel where the missing piece used to hurt. I didn't move for a long time. Just stood there by the open door, listening to the absence of their voices, the click of her heels, the stupid laugh he had when he was trying to charm someone who should have been immune. I walked through the house like I was seeing it for the first time, noticing details that never mattered before. The coffee mug she always left half full on the windowsill. The plant by the back door that only thrived because I watered it. A blanket she'd said her mother gave her, still folded on the couch, except I knew now it wasn't from her mother. It was from one of their weekend getaways. I picked it up. It smelled like a place I'd never been. By evening I had a list. Not a revenge list. Not exactly. A rebuild list. Step 1 was taking back the house. I boxed everything. Every item she touched, bought, or once bragged about. Every dress she wore while lying to me. Every photo of us with fake smiles and dead eyes. I didn't smash them. That would have been too easy. I cataloged them, labeled them, stacked them in the guest room, the one she said gave her bad vibes. Fitting. She could collect her ghosts later. Step 2 was digital. I changed every password. Banking, streaming, email, security system, even the Spotify playlist she curated with him that I wasn't supposed to know about. Step 3, I went through the guest list. Not for a party. For my life. People we knew. Friends. Coworkers. The couples we used to dine with. I messaged the ones who mattered. Not to gossip. Just to set the record straight. Short messages, simple. You might hear things soon. I won't tell you what to believe. But if you need the truth, I have receipts. Literally. Some replied with shock. Some with silence. A few asked for the receipts. I gave them names, dates, screenshots. Nothing vindictive. Just the truth. By midnight, I was exhausted. Not from the work. From the clarity. She texted at 12:04 a.m. Can we talk? I stared at it. Then I replied. What do you want to say that wasn't said while you were destroying me? She didn't reply. Not right away. Then another text came. You're being cruel. 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 I didn't respond. Not because I had nothing to say, because everything I wanted to say was too pure, too unfiltered, and I wasn't about to hand her another story where she played the role of the wounded woman married to a cold-hearted man. Instead, I opened a new document on my computer and started writing. Not a journal. Not a letter. An account. Of everything. The lies. The little signs I missed. The way she used silence like a weapon and sympathy like a disguise. I wrote it all down. Because one day when she tells her version to someone new, I want to remember how it really went. Not with bitterness. With precision. The next morning she came back. I watched her through the security camera, standing at the front door in an oversized hoodie and sunglasses like she was avoiding paparazzi. She knocked once. Then again. I didn't answer. She waited 7 minutes. Then left. She came back the next day, this time with a different approach, called my sister. Said she was worried about me. My sister replied exactly how I hoped she would. You should be worried about yourself. It was working. The house, the silence, the air, it was all starting to feel like mine again. Not hers. And not ours. Just mine. Day 4. The facade had officially cracked. Not mine, hers. I woke up to a string of voicemails from people I hadn't spoken to in months. Her friends. The ones who always smiled at me a little too politely, the ones who texted her during dinner and called it urgent. Suddenly, they were reaching out to me. One of them, Rachel, left the most interesting message. Hey. Look, I didn't know it was that bad. She told us you were emotionally unstable. That you were having breakdowns. But now I'm seeing things online and I think we need to talk. Online? I logged into an old Facebook account I hadn't touched in over a year. My name had been mentioned in a post public. Tagged. Her profile, a photo of her looking just sad enough, writing a paragraph that felt designed by a PR firm. No one really knows what goes on behind closed doors. Sometimes we stay in relationships that chip away at our souls because we're afraid of being alone. I tried. I really did. But emotional neglect is real. And I deserve to be happy too. Underneath, comments flooded in. Stay strong, girl. You deserve love. Proud of you for leaving. And my name? Quietly dropped in a few threads. Hints of rage. Accusations of control. One person even called me a textbook narcissist. Someone she'd never met. I didn't see red. I saw strategy. She was shifting the spotlight before it ever hit her face. Rewriting history in real time. But she made one mistake. She underestimated what I still had. The group chat. 3 of her closest friends were still in it, one of whom had quietly sent me screenshots after her public post went up. Turns out the sympathy parade was a cover. Behind the scenes? She was spiraling. Panic texts. Scrambling to figure out who had leaked the photos. Asking if anyone could convince me to keep things private. Threatening to go nuclear if I exposed the full truth. I didn't reply to any of it. Not directly. Instead, I called my lawyer. Not for a divorce. For something more controlled. We drew up a legal separation agreement, tight, detailed, and packed with clauses that protected every dollar, asset, and piece of intellectual property I'd ever touched. I sent it to her email with a simple message. You wanted freedom. Here it is. Sign it or I release everything. She didn't respond for 2 days. Then she called at 11:38 p.m. on a Friday night. I let it ring until voicemail. Her voice was soft, careful, like it was made of tissue paper and regret. You're really going to do this? After everything we had? You want to humiliate me? No. That wasn't the point. The humiliation wasn't mine to create, it was hers to acknowledge. And it had already begun. On Monday, I got an email from HR at her job. A formal request. She had listed me as an emergency contact years ago and never changed it. Now they were investigating a matter concerning internal relationships and asked if I'd be willing to speak privately about any knowledge I had. I declined. Not because I wanted to protect her, but because her collapse wasn't going to be public fireworks. No. It was going to be slow, private, personal. The way she undid me. That weekend I started renovating the house. New paint. New furniture. I moved her books into storage, replaced every frame on the wall with photos of my life, family, real friends, solo trips she'd mocked me for taking alone. I reclaimed space not with destruction but with rebirth. The bedroom? I gutted it. Stripped the sheets, tossed the mattress, burned the old candle she used to light when she was feeling disconnected. I wasn't disconnected. I was alive. And for the first time in a long time I was becoming someone I recognized again. She could have the crowd, the comments, the curated sob story. But I had something better. The truth, she finally signed the papers. No fanfare, no comment. Just a scanned PDF in my inbox on a Tuesday morning with a subject line, so passive it was almost poetic, as discussed. It came with no apology, no explanation. But what it did come with was a silent admission. She knew the war was over and she'd lost the only currency she ever really had, my silence. I didn't respond. I forwarded the document to my lawyer and went about my day. But later that evening something unexpected happened. Mike called. Not a text. Not a voicemail. An actual call. I stared at his name on the screen for a full minute, debating whether I wanted to hear the voice of the man who thought he could slide into my world and leave without scars. I picked up. His voice was cautious. Humble. He sounded like someone who hadn't been sleeping. I just needed to say something, he started. You said enough already, I said, sharp but not angry. I wasn't angry anymore. I was something colder. I get that. But I need you to know she lied to both of us. It wasn't just the marriage. She told me things about you. Things I repeated to other people. I was wrong. There was a beat of silence. The air between us felt like static. I believed her, he said. I didn't ask questions because I didn't want to know the answers. She made you sound like a monster and I let myself be the hero in someone else's story. I didn't let him off the hook. You didn't just believe her. You helped her. You showed up here like you belonged. You laughed in my living room. I know, he said quietly. I've been replaying that moment every day since. Good. I broke it off, he added. The moment I left your house that day. I haven't seen her since. She's been calling, texting, saying I ruined her life. She ruined her own life, I said. You just gave her a mirror. He didn't answer. Before he could, I said what I needed to say. You're not part of this anymore. I'm not your priest and I don't need your guilt. Make peace with yourself, but leave me out of it. And I hung up. I wasn't interested in his redemption arc. She called the next day. Not to beg. Not to apologize. She was furious. You told people I cheated. I showed them proof, I corrected. Big difference. You've made me a pariah. They think I'm some manipulative sociopath. I didn't say it. I let her sit with the echo. Do you think this makes you powerful? She snapped. Humiliating me? No, I said slowly. I think it makes me accurate. She exhaled sharply, that same hiss of breath she used to give me when I brought up uncomfortable truths. But now she had no upper hand. No secret she could dangle. No apology to weaponize. I hope you're proud of yourself, she said. I paused, then delivered it calmly. I'm not proud. I'm just done. And I was. Done with the show. Done with the performance she built around herself, the illusions she forced others to clap for. Her entire life had been a house of cards balanced on whispers and manipulation. Now it was paper in the wind. By week's end, the story had changed. People started whispering back, people who saw through her, who reached out privately with messages like, I never believed her completely. Thanks for standing your ground. You handled this with more grace than I could have. I saw how she treated you. You deserve better. She wasn't the only one good at spinning narratives. The difference? I had the truth and the patience to let it settle. 2 weeks later, I got an invitation. Not the kind you expect, no party, no event, no olive branch. This was subtler, sneakier. A LinkedIn connection request. From her. Her new profile. New job title. New city listed. New carefully worded bio about starting over and finding clarity through hardship. I stared at it for a while, unsure if it was a joke or a trap. And then I understood. She was rebuilding. Rebranding. This was her attempt to erase the ashes without acknowledging the fire. Hoping I'd accept the request, validate the illusion, and maybe even now give her one last piece of my dignity to repurpose into hers. I ignored it. But it stayed with me for hours, crawling into my head like a tick. Not because I missed her, but because it made something click. She wasn't ashamed of what she did. She was ashamed it didn't work. She wanted to be the one who walked away. Wanted to play the role of the brave woman leaving a cold marriage, stepping into something softer, freer. She had crafted her exit like a performance, and when I refused to read the lines she gave me, she flailed. So she pivoted. Now she was painting herself as a survivor. Of me. I didn't react publicly. I didn't post a rebuttal, didn't send texts to mutual friends. I didn't need to, because the real revenge had already begun. It wasn't flames. It was absence. Her calls slowed, then stopped. No more late-night voicemails. No texts. She stopped trying to argue because arguing required relevance and I had drained her of it. What came next surprised even me. Her mother reached out. We'd always had a strange connection. She liked me too much, maybe? Used to say I was too good for her daughter, but always in that half-joking way that covered deeper truths. She sent a single message. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. I wish I had warned you sooner. I didn't respond, but I reread it 5 times. It meant something. It meant this wasn't new. That maybe I wasn't the first casualty. Just the one who finally called it what it was. Later that week, I ran into someone unexpected at a coffee shop. Her old college friend, Tara. The one she always said was too dramatic and loved stirring the pot. Tara saw me, smiled sadly, and came over. I always thought you deserved better, she said, not even waiting for small talk. She used to brag about how easily she could lie. You were just too kind to believe it. I didn't reply. Just nodded. She hesitated, then leaned closer. She's alone now, you know? The other guy? Dumped her. Said she was toxic. That word. Toxic. For the first time, it didn't sting. It validated everything. I'm not surprised, I said quietly. Good, she said. Don't go back. Even if she cries. And then she was gone. That night, I sat outside on the porch with a whiskey I didn't even want. The air was colder than usual. Clean. The stars didn't look different, but I did. She used to say I wasn't spontaneous enough. That I was too safe. She mistook discipline for weakness. And now she was learning what discipline looks like when it stops working for you and starts working against you. I got another message that night. Not from her. From someone I hadn't spoken to since college. Someone who had seen the posts, heard the rumors, and messaged just to say, I don't know the whole story, but I believe you. Funny thing is, I didn't need anyone to believe me anymore. I had already survived the fire. Now I was walking clean through the smoke without a single burn. It happened exactly 37 days after she left. I got the letter in the mail, an actual letter, not an email, not a message in a bottle through social media. Just a plain white envelope with my name scrawled in handwriting I used to know better than my own. No return address, of course. Just that slow, ghostly arrogance only she could wrap into a postage stamp. I didn't open it right away. I placed it on the kitchen counter and just looked at it. Like it might hiss or bite. Because I knew what was inside before I read a single word. Not an apology. A last audition. And when I finally opened it late at night with the windows shut tight and the silence so loud it vibrated, I wasn't surprised. Not really. But I was impressed at how thoroughly she could rewrite history on paper while still sounding like she was bearing her soul. She wrote about love. How she lost herself trying to be what I needed. How I made her feel invisible even though she dressed that invisibility in lingerie for someone else. How she wished things had turned out differently and how part of her would always love me. And then came the pitch. She wanted to meet. Just to talk. One coffee. One conversation. No expectations. I folded the letter in half, not neatly, and placed it in the drawer with the others. Yes, others. This wasn't the first letter. Just the first one that was written instead of typed. Every one of her apologies had been curated, crafted not for healing, but for access. And I was done giving her keys. I didn't reply. I didn't burn it. I let it live there, quiet and unopened since that first read, a monument to the audacity of someone who thought closure was a coupon she could redeem whenever she ran out of new places to haunt. That weekend I drove 3 hours north to a cabin I used to visit as a kid with my dad. No cell signal, no Wi-Fi, just wind in the trees and the occasional hum of memory. I brought one photo. Just one. The last one we ever took together, her leaning into me, head tilted, smiling wide with her arm around my back. If you didn't know better, you'd think we were happy. But I remembered that day. I remembered how she picked a fight in the car, refused to hold my hand on the walk there, and snapped the picture anyway, insisting we look good for the memories. I stood by the riverbank and let it go. Not the memory. The photo. I dropped it into the current and watched it carry her away inch by inch until she became nothing but a blur of paper and water and everything she'd pretended to be. No rage. No ceremony. Just stillness. When I came back home, I cleaned out the guest room, the one where I boxed up the wreckage. It took hours. But by the end of it, there was nothing left of her in that house. No scent. No trace. Not even dust. Later that night, I opened my laptop. Started writing again. Not just the account of what happened, but something more. A letter. Not to her. To me. The version of myself who had stayed loyal. Who had bent and folded and offered grace until there was nothing left to offer. The man who thought love meant endurance. Who stayed long after the lights went out. I told him thank you. And goodbye. Because I didn't need to carry him anymore. I wasn't him anymore. I was someone new. It didn't end with a bang. There was no dramatic confrontation, no final doorstep scene, no screaming match under rainclouds. The end came quietly, like all real endings do, not with the sound of breaking glass, but with the silence that follows when you finally let go of something that's already gone. 2 months after she left, I saw her one last time. By accident. A grocery store. Middle of the day. I was grabbing coffee and bread. She turned the corner into my aisle and froze. I didn't. I kept walking. I passed her like she was a stranger, and in that moment, she was. Same face. Same eyes. But she wore them differently now. Like a mask too tight for the skin beneath it. She didn't say my name. She didn't call after me. She just watched. And I kept going. Basket swinging in one hand. Light. It was the first time I truly felt it. Freedom. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that builds slowly in your bones until one day you realize you're no longer dragging the weight of someone else's betrayal behind you. You're just walking. Existing. Living. I paid for my groceries, walked to the car, and only then did I allow myself one last glance back. She was gone. That night, I finished the last entry in the document I'd been writing since the day it all began. It wasn't a story of revenge. It wasn't a warning or a bitter rant or a eulogy for a failed marriage. It was a resurrection. I read back through it all. The frame on the wall. The texts. The confrontation. The collapse. The slow, cold rebuilding. Her unraveling. His shame. My silence. My voice. And I realized something. She didn't ruin me. She revealed me. She exposed the quiet parts of me I'd buried, the parts that endured too much, tolerated too many almosts, forgave what should never have been tolerated. She pulled back the curtain not just on herself, but on me. And in the ruins, I found someone I liked. Someone I respected. Someone I could finally trust again. So if you're reading this and you're where I was doubting your instincts, drowning in confusion, making excuses for someone who treats your trust like a doormat, let me say this. You're not crazy. You're not weak. And you are absolutely not responsible for someone else's decision to lie to your face while they kiss you goodnight. You don't need to burn everything to the ground to rise. Sometimes you just have to open the door. Let them leave, and never let them back in. Because healing doesn't always look like vengeance. Sometimes it just looks like peace. And for the first time in a long time, that's exactly what I have.